Not pissing off Lord and Lady Carnarvon if you can help it. I think Paddington would play havoc. Yeah, Salmon at 8 a.m. soon turns to something very pongy. This time it really did feel like goodbye.
It's hard to accept that it's time to go. Your friendship has never been more important to all of us.
I wanted to be involved because Julian Fellowes had told me a little etching of the story about 10 months before when I was doing a film with him. And I said, oh, that sounds really interesting. Will you send it to me when it's ready? Which he did, and I couldn't put it down. And the characters were so vivid. They, leapt off the page. They weren't cast yet, but I could, cast them in my head, as it were. That combination of vivid characters and page-turning stories really stayed with me. And as for the first day on set, I can't remember it, but I do have a photograph of myself and Laura Carmichael, who played Lady Edith. So I think we did our first scene together in the library. It would have been, I remember it being very cold because Highclere Castle has its own microclimate, and in February it's ghastly. No, I remember a conversation with Gareth Neame, our executive producer, early on, talking about the 3-year option, and he said, well, just ignore that because we all know that shows like this won't run beyond one season. So it was odd that we not only did 6 seasons, but now here we are finishing our 3rd film. So it's extraordinary. It's been an extraordinary journey, as they say, and a very happy one. I don't know what the magic ingredient is. The more one talks about it, the different answers come into one's head. But I think at its core is the writing and the fact that Julian Fellowes himself has said he writes from a default position that people try to be good. And so there is a heart. There is a heart of compassion at the centre of the story, and it's crossed generations and demographics of all sorts and touched people. So there's something in the very soul of the show, I think, and the fact that the castle is the central character, and that all these people satellite around it, and all those different relationships are universal relationships. So that is beautiful to look at. I think it's well cast. I think all the production values are extremely high. The music's fantastic. Every element seemed to somehow click and touch audiences worldwide. So it's been a unique phenomenon that's very hard to define.
But the future of Downton Abbey is now in Mary's hands.
It's a delicious idea that somehow Noel Coward's visit to Highclere, to Downton, has inspired him to write his next play, which is a gorgeous little frisson. And it's always been fun to echo or to bounce off the real world outside. People used to get quite uppity in the press about it, being inaccurate but it's not pretending to be a documentary. It's a world of fiction in the same way that Star Trek's a world of fiction. But you can still engage with the characters within it. But it's nice when it bumps into the odd bit of reality. In our case, in this final film, it's a few months after the stock market crash, so that has a resonance. And also social mores of the time. The fact that Lady Mary, as a divorced woman, is shunned by high society, or rather shouldn't be in the same room as a member of the royal family, which of course we find the whole concept now very strange. But let's not forget we lost a monarch because he wanted to marry a divorced woman. So it shows how rapidly. I think Downton's often shone a torch on how rapidly things have how near in our recent history things have changed. But it feels like an age ago. But it's actually only next door. Well, it's always been a lovely office to turn up for work in. The last day, in fact, my last shot was with Elizabeth, who plays Cora, and that felt very appropriate. And it was our final shot in the movie. And it was a beautiful sunset, and we were walking across the lawn, and it just felt a really nice little bow on what's been on and off 15 years of working at that iconic building. Not pissing off Lord and Lady Carnarvon if you can help it. Not breaking their furniture if you can help it. No, the other pitfalls, I don't know really, but no, I hope we found a happy balance of treating their home with respect, but also treating it as our workplace. I remember when there was an episode in season 6 where my ulcer burst, and so I was vomiting blood. And I know that John Gundle, who's the house manager, was convinced I was trying to sort of ruin his carpet. But we put our own carpets down on top of their carpets, and we rehearsed that scene vigorously beforehand. My only objective was to splatter Elizabeth McGovern opposite me, which I achieved on the first take, so I was very pleased about that.
Lady Mary must go now. She's divorced. I'm very sorry. I shouldn't have come.
The best thing about playing Robert Crawley has been, I think just play, well, I'll put it this way. When I first read it, I liked the character. In lesser hands, he could have been a moustache-twirling baddie, pompous ass, whatever. He's quite pompous, but I talked to Julian Fellowes a little bit about it, the character, and I said, what's he drawn from? Where there's a generosity of spirit in the man, and he said, well, it's largely based on my father, and I love my father. So it's as simple as that. So there's a compassion in the character, which I always responded to. He can be belligerent and blind to what's in front of his face, and emotionally quite dumb, but there's a kindness of spirit there, and as I say, a compassion which I respond to. We'd said goodbye several times. At the end of the TV series, I thought we'd never be back, because I said again to Gareth Neame, good luck with herding all these cats. You're never going to do it. So great credit to him and Liz Trubridge, our producer, and to Julian for getting us back not once but 3 times. So this time it really did feel like goodbye. So it's a nice way to end.
Do you think it's the love of the show that meant that everyone wanted to come back?
I think the love of the show and cash.
Love that. That's great.
Now we must just get on with it.
What about her running Downton?
Don't you want her in command? The world is changing. The way we talk, the way we dress.
I think I'd quite like to invite the character I played in a film called I Came By, who was a very respected High Court judge, turned out to be a serial killer. That'd be quite fun. That would be a good plot line.
I could also see Mr. Brown and Paddington coming.
Yeah, I think Paddington coming to stay. I did actually. I have got a picture somewhere of Richard E. Grant drinking a small Paddington bear out of a wine glass. But I think Paddington would play havoc. Yeah, he and Teo the dog would run amok. Gosh, there have been many. Actually, just talking of the dog, I quite enjoyed. I suggested to Julian, because some online geek had pointed out that the dog was getting a bit old in story terms, and had obviously worked out the backstory of how long this dog had been alive. So I said to Julian, how about killing the dog? Because let's face it, there's a certain type of British bloke who loves his animals more than his own family, and everyone likes a dying animal. So he said that's quite an interesting idea. So he developed that. Unfortunately, the dog at the time was the most jaunty, sprightly, full of beans and zest and life. So it was not very good at dying. And so I remember when James Collier played Thomas the Footman, had to bring him in, and we had to look sad because he was on his last legs and his tail was wagging and he was having a lovely time. So I said, well, just put a blanket over him, because then that says I'm not well. So that was the way we got around that one. But I quite enjoyed that story. And then getting the new puppy, that was very sweet.
Welcome back, my brother. Cora. The news is bad, isn't it?
How could you tell?
I've known you since you were born.
Well, of course, when we made the third film, she was still alive. And then she passed away a few months after we finished filming. So it became... de facto a tribute to her, but it was already there in the script that the memories of Grandmama were still very potent, and her portrait's there in the hall looking down on Lady Mary and all of us at the end. So it felt a very fitting tribute when she did pass, that she was remembered explicitly. We didn't miss her because she was still alive, but we certainly felt the absence of her in the third film, and she's referred to a fair bit. And there are callbacks to some of her famous lines and all that sort of thing. So I think it still stands up without her, but she was much missed.
If Mama were alive, what would she do?
It is quite a long process. One dining room scene took 3 days to film. Early on, in the era before electric lights came into the dining room, everything was candlelit. We were filming in summer, so the windows had to be boarded up for nighttime scenes. So it got very, very hot, and salmon at 8 a.m. soon turns to something very pongy. And so that after that lesson was learned, any fish scenes became chicken disguised or pretending to be fish. I think it's not all fun and games. It's quite a slow process. And also the number of people who come on set and think, well, why are you doing it again? Or why are you doing it from another angle? And they don't quite understand. They think you do the scene and then move on. So I think and also, why is nothing happening? Well, there's always something happening because time is money. So I think the actual process of making a film or TV show is what people underestimate, and the number of people it takes to make the thing happen. Hundreds and hundreds of people are involved, rather than just one actor turning up and having a selfie on him. Oh, I'm sure there's room for spin-offs of some sort, either set in the future or in the past or in space, or I don't know. But it's time for our chapter to close, certainly, and it feels very appropriate.